Welcome to the Camera Dude Podcast, where we focus our lens on business. We will cover the art of business and everything in between. Join your host, Rob Moorman, a seasoned photographer and RV park owner with over 27 years of experience, as he captures insights from industry experts and fellow entrepreneurs. From mastering customer service to igniting creativity, we explore the common threads that weave through successful businesses. Get ready to click, snap, and discover on the Camera Dude Podcast.
Welcome to the Camera Dude Podcast. I'm Rob Moorman, your host. Join us today as we dive into all things about life and business. Hey, let's get it cranking, all right? We have a guest today that is an expert in luxury targeted print marketing, networking, relationship marketing, and community building. I have watched this guest start with a small company and grow it into 3 successful publications/franchises. She is smart, motivated, community-minded, forward-thinking, and the cool part is she loves fast cars. And I would say that she probably works as fast as she drives, so that you guys know. And, well, let's just jump into it. Welcome our next guest, Lindsey German.
Thank you, Rob. I'm excited to be here. That's quite a resume you've given me.
Well, you've built that on your own, just so that you know, and I've enjoyed watching it. I'm going to do a little bit of our relationship. So I'm working in my studio. I'm in the back room, and my wife who works with us comes in and says, and don't take this wrong, it was a long time ago. She goes, there's a high school kid here trying to sell you something for this publication. Well, I was already involved in the publication, but I didn't know. You weren't in high school. You're just gorgeous and young looking and all of that. And so my wife's like, I think when you get old, everybody's in high school, even though they're not. They might be 30. So having said that, I come out and I let you give me your spiel. And I'm kind of giggling because I was already with the publication, which I'll let you introduce that in a minute. And then, of course, I jumped in right away. And because what made me jump in, first of all, I was already there, so it was a comfortable zone. And you had bought another neighborhood area, if you will. Is it safe to say franchise, neighborhood
Correct.
franchise? Okay. And I was familiar with it, and I knew what was involved in it, but it was your energy, your tenacity, your smarts, and your ability to grow this thing, and I knew it would. And I'm sorry that you own 3. That's partially my advice and fault to you. But anyhow, I hope that it's working out for you. I think it is.
It's going very well, and I appreciate your encouragement to poke me to adventure out and take on new challenges.
Good. Well, and you have, and I knew you could handle it. The biggest thing, Lindsey, is that I knew you were young enough. It's like, do it now, because you can build that, and later in your life, they'll be like a well-oiled machine and running well. I mean, you always have speed bumps of some sort, but you'll have experienced those speed bumps and know how to handle them later. And it'll just become simple and act as if it's one business, though it's 3 different neighborhood franchises. So it's kind of interesting. So, Lindsey, introduce yourself for us. Tell us a little bit about you, family, your education, any accolades that you might have.
Well, I'm a second-generation St. Pete native. My family has resided in Pinellas County, so I've never left the area. And as far as college and education, I'm also graduated from St. Pete St. Pete College. And have just always spent my life here in Tampa Bay.
Very good. And what was your high school, if you don't mind me asking?
Tarpon Springs. I originally thought that I was going to go into veterinary medicine. And so I graduated with a certificate in veterinary assisting and then ended up in business.
Wow. Well, I've always heard these stories where we start in one place and end in another, but I don't like to use the word fate. I like to say it's a God thing. He puts us where he knows we're going to fit properly. And I think that that's exactly where you're at now.
Absolutely.
So I know by your actions that you have no regrets in any way. So that's a good thing. Tell me a little bit about present, of course. Introduce what you do now. And also, I like to start at the beginning. What was your very first job? I mean, it could be flipping hamburgers, but what was it and where are you now? So that's kind of this podcast journey.
Yeah, my first job, I was serving in a dining hall for an assisted living facility.
Oh, wow.
And I was just very close with my grandfather at the time, and that seemed like it would fit well. Of course, then while I was going through schooling, moved into working for a veterinary office here in St. Petersburg. They're still around, different ownership, but still here. And then on the side, as you mentioned, kind of being a car enthusiast, I would put together breast cancer awareness car shows. My mom is in remission from breast cancer, thank God.
Awesome.
And so we would raise money for local nonprofits who would help families in Tampa Bay. And through that initiative, I met the owner of the Bel Air franchise. And so he introduced me to the concept. The timing was right. I explored it a little bit more. I went 7 months with no income to start the first franchise. And now I have 3. So it's gone pretty well. But essentially, I own a franchise with the N2 company. And they're a multifaceted marketing agency based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And I own the franchises for 3 different neighborhoods in St. Pete. So Venetian Isles, Snell Isle, and Tierra Verde. And basically what we do is we produce what we like to call private monthly social publications. And so basically the entire magazine that we produce, which is Stroll Snell Isle, Stroll Venetian Isles, Stroll Tierra Verde, is all about those individual communities. So we rely on the residents to supply the content. We interview them on their families, their kids, their pets, their vacations, charities that are important to them. So the entire magazine represents and helps to build relationships in those individual communities. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do it without our amazing advertising sponsors. So we work with local businesses to help introduce them in those communities and help them build relationships.
Perfect. One of the great things that I've seen you do is do that. You came into a community and the magazine melded in perfectly and you became part of that community as if you live in each one of them. They all know who you are. And of course, 2 of the publications has one of the best photographers in the world, I think. Maybe I'm a little biased. I don't know.
They do.
There, that's it. So Moorman Photographics, that's how we met. I was working with Tierra Verde publication for years, and it changed ownership, and Lindsey became the new owner at a certain point, and so we're working together there. But my first magazine with you was Stroll Venetian Isles. The name changed about halfway through my tenure with the magazine, and we're still there and still going. So that's a good thing. Well, what do you do for fun? Hobbies? Do you have anything that maybe our listeners hear that they will tie in to maybe know you better from?
Yeah. Well, again, our family's all local. So our weekends are typically spent somewhere around Tampa Bay doing something with, I have 2 younger siblings, and Nick, my fiance, has his family's here as well. So we're normally either hopping on the boat, as you probably are on the weekends sometimes, or, checking out everything that Tampa Bay has to offer. There's always something new going on. So our next endeavors are we're trying a new pottery class in a place in St. Pete. And just local restaurants all the time. But outside of local, we love to travel. We're constantly trying to find new places around the United States and, abroad to visit. And so now, these days, I think most of my extra time is dedicated to planning our wedding. We are getting married in October.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the honeymoon, which we are so looking forward to, in addition to the wedding, will be in Japan. So kind of getting our itinerary together for that, too.
I'm a little jealous in the fact that you're going to Japan because I haven't been there yet. And it's my desire to see the entire country over there, the culture. But I also want to spend time at the Nikon factory. I can't help it. I'm a photographer. It's what I do. I'm excited about your wedding. We are attending, so that's a good thing. And I don't photograph weddings anymore for our listeners. I still photograph every day. But over the long run, after 500 weddings, I decided I needed some Saturdays back in my life. So
Amen.
Unfortunately, I'm not working it. But fortunately, I'm going to be there, relax, and watch 2 people that I know and love get married and start this cool path in their life. So that's a good thing.
And while I appreciate having you as a photographer with us in the publications, it is also just nice to have a friendship so well established now that I want you at my wedding, and then I've been able to rely on you to provide a recommendation for a wedding photographer. So thank you.
That's a testimony to real face-to-face networking that we'll talk about later in the podcast. But relationships, I always say my networking people become my people. They just are. They're my outer family, if you will. You have your bloodline and then these people that are in your circle. And many of my networking partners are just that. When they go through trials, we're there with them. And so that's, and or positive things like a marriage, of course. So I love stating that this type of networking that started with us has become more of a relationship that's almost turned into family, really. So cool. All right. Well, hey, let's take a moment and have a quick message from our sponsor.
This is Ryan, co-owner of St. Pete Coffee. One thing we know is fresh coffee just tastes better. That's why we roast single origin coffee beans every week right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. St. Pete Coffee isn't just about roasting the coffee, it's about creating a coffee experience. You'll get fresh, smooth coffee with every cup, free of that smoky, burned bitterness you find in so many others. So whether you're a fan of a medium or dark roast, you'll be amazed by the clean, pure flavor we bring to every cup. Right now, we're offering a 10% discount to Camera Dude podcast listeners with the discount code CameraDude. Experience the difference.
All right, guys, let's get back into the heart of the recording, if you would. You've said it before, so I won't ask it again, except you talked about your very first job. So rather than tell us about it, tell me how it prepared you for what you're doing today.
I think really what it comes down to is building relationships and communication. I mean, my first job has nothing to do really with what I'm doing now aside from working with people. And so, just starting to realize what customer service looks like from being a server in an assisted living facility, but, conquering problems and handling certain scenarios and being more of a problem solver is I think, still the skill set that I use in business today.
Awesome. Okay. That's incredible to hear, because I find that when people start their first job, they're like, yeah, it's just kind of a bum job. But I always felt that there was a lot to learn there, and it wasn't a forever thing. It was, I'm here for now. I'm getting schooled in whatever it is I was doing. I started off as a production assistant in the motion picture industry, which basically meant I was driving producers to the airport. I was driving big trucks on set. I ended up with a commercial driver's license, and I would do things like in production. If you're an assistant, if the prop department is falling behind, they get on the walkie and they send our production assistants into that arena, and you're there long enough to help them get caught up, as well as numerous other unwanted tasks on a set the production assistant does. I ended up getting really good at it and got stuck in my position, and so I decided to move into the world of professional photography and grow, and so that's what's happened. So it's kind of neat. So we know that you're with Into Publishing, and you have Stroll TR Verde, Stroll Venetian Isles, and Stroll Snell Isle. And you've already mentioned what you do, but the motivation, when you first saw that and were approached with it, what ticked in your mind that said, this is what I want?
Well, it was, again, introduced to the business I was PR'd, personal referral, by a current franchise owner. And so when he was telling me what he did in the community and how they were sharing stories, and the content in the magazine was about the residents. It was like I was looking at social media, but in print and without all of the politics and the drama of social media, because it's all happy, friendly, relationship building content in our publications. And then at one point, we also host events in our neighborhoods, and we invite our partners out. So he invited me to one of those, and I got to see the residents getting together, having a great time. I could see some of their sponsors making great connections at that event. And I thought, how cool is this? It's a win-win-win for everyone involved. The community has this tool that helps them meet people in their neighborhood. Businesses are able to reach some of the more affluent demographic in their respective area. And of course, as a franchise model, you get paid. So I thought it was just a fantastic concept, and started with one. Never thought that I would have three, but here we are.
Awesome. I love that. Sometimes life throws us a curveball, and again, I've already said it, we end up where we're supposed to be and don't know it. The path is set for us, and he knows before we do, and so that part's kind of cool. What I love about the magazines is you're bringing community within each neighborhood. New neighbors get, mentioned in the magazine a lot. You highlight one, maybe more families on the cover every month in each neighborhood, so that they all get to know each other, can read about each other, and then you bring them together. You do a food truck event in Venetian, which is always good. I show up for that because I eat too much. So I'm attracted by the food trucks. And of course, I'm there photographing, what have you. But I love that it does that. But you're also taking businesses in the area. Some of them are residents in those neighborhoods, and some of them are outside successful companies that are just looking to reach those residents on a personal relationship level and not just hit them with marketing only,
Right.
but build those forever relationships that businesses need to stay alive. So I think in an aerial perspective, that's what the magazine does. And you're the perfect personality to do that, by the way. There's not a single person that I photographed that goes, oh, Lindsey. Instead, all they do is talk about you, just so you know.
Well, thank you.
You may not know that, but I see that end of it. So
This is a great way to start my day, Rob. I want to do this every day with you, actually.
I love it. It's true, truth is truth. So we're going to jump into business a little bit now that we know what you do and how you do it. And then later we'll talk about how businesses can be helped by what you do there as well from the outside. So before we do that, I'm going to read this question verbatim. What advice do you have for a young entrepreneur trying to start from the beginning? Tell the listeners, tell them something that you wish you knew when you started.
I think this is a great question because especially as a young entrepreneur, that was almost the reason why I didn't move forward in this franchise. I thought that I was too young. I thought that I didn't have the skill set. I thought that I didn't have the experience, and I didn't. So there was quite a learning curve in the beginning, and there still is. Every business owner that I meet with, I learn something new. But I guess my piece of advice for a younger entrepreneur would be to get used to getting uncomfortable. And I think what you said earlier, like sometimes we're pushed by God and it's strong, but sometimes there's a pull and it's quiet and you don't really notice it at first. But you have to listen. And when you take those leaps of faith, you have to trust in Him throughout the process. So I think that I've gotten really good at, in my moments of weakness and being scared and not knowing what to do or how to take a next step, that I just trust in Him. That would be my piece of advice.
I love that advice because I'm in the same boat of thinking that you are, if you will, on that. So I like that you have your faith. And what I see is first of all, you're letting Him guide and direct you. And then secondly, when times are rough and things are unknown, you let Him be the pilot.
Right. Because we're always going to have those moments. If you know anything about business, it's always up and down. So
exactly. And I will tell you, just my listeners know already, but after I think it was 19 or 20 years into being a professional photographer, I inherited a 21-acre RV park. I'm a photographer. What do I know about RVing? So you had talked about being young, and not knowing all the tactics needed for business and maybe the experience you were lacking. Well, even at my age, when I inherited that, I was 47, 48, I think, somewhere in there. I had no idea. So it was the same position, but at an older age. So sure, I had been through the photography industry, but the RVing industry, which is a massive, wonderful business, is 100% different. We have all the same things in common, which is what this podcast is about: customer service, first impressions, networking, marketing. All of those things are similar, whether you're selling widgets or you're a musician or you're managing a publication where you're bringing people together and looking for businesses to join you in their advertising and so on. I still think that the main thing is the main thing, and that's our first impressions. So it's good to hear you're doing that. Let me ask you a different question here. This question is important to me, and I think it provides longevity. Moorman Photographics is 28 years. We have customers that have been with us for 20 years. We've photographed their kids when they were in diapers. I recently did some of their portraits just before they left for college. Okay. And I love that type of client. They always say the easiest client to get is one that you already have.
Right.
Now, you're always adding new. You have to put a log on the fire. Eventually, those kids are going to grow up, get married, and move away or whatever. They're not my clients anymore by natural attrition. Versus me losing them because I didn't hold on to them properly and hold them to my heart. So tell me how you managed to have repeat customers. How'd you build their trust enough for them to return regularly?
Yeah, I think photography is, of course, a little bit different than marketing because you're going to need a photographer at different stages in your life from my perspective, of course, you get married, and then at some point, maybe you have kids, and then, so on and so forth, different life events, and you're going to need that photographer for all of those points and in between. For marketing, I think it's a bit different because not every piece of marketing works well for every business. So it all works at some degree, but not equally for every business that you talk to. And there's seasonality to it also. But I think for the businesses that we work with, if they see our communities as their target market and they want to stay in that community, they want to build a relationship with that community long term, then we're always the right fit for them. Did I answer your question?
You did. And it was fascinating to hear that different types of marketing for different types of business. I don't want to throw a loop at you here, but tell me maybe an example of that. So if someone sells microphones for a living, maybe that's not right for a neighborhood.
Right.
They need to be in an industrial publication somewhere versus your neighborhood. So maybe come up with another example that you would think that wouldn't be a good fit and one that would be.
That wouldn't be a good fit. Yeah, I think, if it's local retail, then of course that makes sense because they're looking for people here in their backyard to be regular customers of theirs. But yeah, like you mentioned, Amazon's not going to be a client for me. They want to reach anybody and everyone. Their products are a good fit for, all of Tampa Bay, all of the world for the most part. But a great example of a business that has been with us for 11 years in Snell Isle and Tierra Verde is a local contractor in the area. And when he and I just actually met and had this conversation, so it's top of mind. But when he first started, I want to say around 12, 13 years ago, he was marketing everywhere. He was on social media. I think he had a radio campaign at one point. He was in most of the publications in town, direct mail. And at this point, fast forward, 11 years since our partnership started, we are the only marketing that he continues to do. Why? Because he's so busy. As a contractor, he can't barely keep up with the work that he has now and still maintain quality, which is his priority. But his best projects have been in these neighborhoods. And he looks through our magazine every month and tells me that he sees one of his clients or someone that he knows because he's very ingrained in the community. So he knows that this is the demographic that he wants to always stay in front of.
Okay, that I don't know that you realized it, but that's a perfect sales pitch for your publication because it's a testimony as to how good it's worked for that builder.
Right.
And you're welcome to mention their company if you wish.
Oh, it's Tarpon Construction.
Okay, very good. So they can reach out and find them on the World Wide Web and look up Tarpon Construction. And he says he's busy, but we'll give him a plug anyway. I love that because I, too, Moorman Photographics is an advertiser in the publication as well as the cover photographer for two of them. And I highly recommend it. And Tarpon Building is absolutely a testimony to how well it works.
Right.
So that's a good thing. All right. Your publication, and you've mentioned it already, it holds socials regularly with the residents and the advertisers, bringing them together. So tell us a little bit about how that works and the success you've had while building this relationship between the two.
Yeah. As far as the social events, we host them about quarterly at this point. I used to do them monthly, and then they weren't as exciting because they had an opportunity every single month. So we weaned it down to quarterly. And they could be, inside the neighborhood. We do those neighborhood block parties and sometimes have food trucks. And sometimes they're outside of the community. We've done events to where we go to local art galleries and meet the artists that have their work displayed in those galleries, have a glass of champagne. We've done charity golf tournaments in the past. So the events vary from small, intimate dinners to, again, as large as a big charity event at Tampa Bay Watch or with local golf tournaments and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, what was the rest of your question?
That was it, actually. It was a good example of the community building that takes place and the energy and effort that you put into it to derive that. I've been on the golf tournaments with you as the photographer. I've seen the good work that it does. I've been to the food truck events and other events that are there, and I see a lot of vendors there that choose to come out and maybe set up for the block party and just be there, not only to sell, but to be a part of the event. And I love that. There's one that we'll give a plug. She's in my networking group, Erica Holland of the Roaming Pedal. Mm-hmm. And I know she advertises with you. And I don't think that was my referral to you. I think that just happens to be that I'm in two worlds that she's in at the same time.
I think I actually referred her to join NPI with you because I thought it would be a great fit. But yeah, she's a great example. When we host events, we don't want businesses there just handing out business cards to every single person that walks by. We want them to be ingrained in the community. So if I host a block party in Snell Isle and I have, a pest control company that wants to be there, I ask them, hey, bring some cupcakes, have a little golf chipping tournament or, bring something to be part of the event. Don't just bring your marketing materials. People want to get to know you, but we also are just here to have fun and build relationships. That's the whole point.
I love that. And I'm going to jump ahead. I know that question is somewhere else, or at least sometimes it's in my notes for each podcast. So I find in my business run that maybe some of the younger entrepreneurs are hesitant to join a face-to-face handshake networking situation. They prefer to just do online only and so on. So what you just said was a testimony to that, and you're still young. Share that with those business people. I want to help anybody that's up and coming as to how, well that works compared to online, which you still must do. But
yeah, I just don't, at this point, I've heard businesses talk about how they're B2B or B2C, but in reality, we're all H to H, which is human to human. So there's nothing that can replace an in-person, face-to-face introduction, contact, relationship.
If I had a bell right now, I would ring it for an award-winning statement. I think we're going to add that to my podcast because you just nailed it. Human to human, H to H. I love that because that's what it's about. People come to our studio because we love them and they love us. And I find that if customers fall in love with you and build that relationship together, they don't go anywhere else. They don't even shop anywhere else. They just come to your magazines or Moorman Photographics or our RV park because we've loved on them in a way that we're part of their life and they're part of ours. I can't stress that enough. So if someone's a little shy and they're new to business, I like to say temporarily. There's an old TV commercial. Maybe somebody won't know it, but I'm going to say it anyways. It used to be never let them see you sweat. Never let them see you sweat. And so it was an Arid Extra Dry commercial. But I use that in business. Even though I've been in business for 28 years, I still get scared. I still get nervous. But the goal is inside, I might be knocking knees and teeth chattering and scared to death, but I'm going to stand up and do that 30-second commercial, and I don't show it. I don't talk about it, but I'm just as nervous as I was when I got started. But I have to take the nervous hat on and I'm a business owner. And one of the things I use is if I don't stand up and do this, I'm not going to get customers. If I don't get customers, my business will fail. So the fear of failure became bigger in my life than the fear of having to stand up and speak or meet people from scratch, people that I don't know at all, and begin to build a relationship. So I allow that fear of failure to drive me forward in a positive way. A lot like an actor would use stage fright as an energy to actually be exuberant on stage and utilize that. It's the same kind of thing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to get uncomfortable in order to make progress.
I love it. Man, where's that bell? Jordan's here, our audio tech. I need a bell, buddy. He's ringing the fake bell over there. We're going to get one. I love that. Actually, so far, you've said two of the best statements out of all my podcasts. So I'm very excited that you're here. All right. I want to talk about something I'm not a negative Nelly or a Debbie Downer by any means, but I like to talk about negative things because they happen.
Right.
And so how do we handle them to turn them back to a positive? So I'm going to read it. It's very short. Tell us how you like to handle a disgruntled client.
I think the best thing that people can do and when they're in a situation like that, because we're all going to have them, is just to really be a good listener. Sometimes what someone is upset or frustrated or complaining about isn't always why they're reaching out to you. Sometimes there's something that's going on behind the scenes that you have no idea that's going on, that you just need to understand that everybody's got a life, right? But then, if what they're saying is, of course, true and there's something that you've done or there's something that maybe you didn't do and drop the ball with that you need to correct, then, be there to listen. And typically I am the type of person that I believe in that you need to give until it hurts. So in order to make a client happy and maintain a relationship, I think that's worth more than, one individual commission, let's say.
Okay, that's very wise to me, and I love that. So you're just continuing to love on that person, listening, find out where the hurt is, and bringing them a salve, if you will, a medicine and a Band-Aid, and cover that up so that that portion can heal by treating them. I've always said, and I thought about on this podcast making T-shirts, but that say this: sometimes you win by losing. I would rather have that client leave happy, and maybe I didn't make a dime because I decided to return their revenue back to them and give them the product and give them another session or whatever. Luckily, it doesn't happen often, but I like to do more than it's expected. I like to contend with it immediately and continue to love on them, because a lot of people get angry, the business owner. Sometimes the customer isn't right, but they've misperceived something. And so that business owner gets puffed up and prideful, and they want to win. And sometimes you win by losing and just going, okay, this particular client saw it a certain way, so I'm going to treat it as if it actually happened, even though that's not what happened, and then take care of it. Now, if it's a mistake that we make, I try to solve the problem before it gets out the door and the customer even knows about it.
Right.
That's good business tactic. But if something happens or it's perceived or misconceived in a way, we deal with it as if it happened. And your answer to how to do that is to continue to love on that client more than ever, and then make sure that they're satisfied.
Yeah, listen to them, understand what their complaint is, and then focus on the next step. What do we do? What do we need to do to make this right? That's where people drop the ball.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. So what we want then is, I'm going to ask you about marketing, and let's be brief. Jordan's over there showing me time. It goes fast when we do these podcasts. So really brief. So, of course, one of your products is marketing, and your other is kind of relationship building within communities. So tell me about your favorite form of advertising other than your own. What I mean by that is yours is number one. I believe that because I use it. But you have to draw people to know about your publications before they see them. What is your favorite form of marketing?
Well, I would say for myself, we rely pretty heavily on word of mouth and referrals. But outside of that, we do run some local targeted social media campaigns. And I believe that businesses shouldn't just invest in my form of marketing, falling more so into a branding and long-term relationship building campaign, but should also invest in lead generation. What can you do to get yourself in front of people who would look for your product or service right now? That's important. But branding on the other side of things too is equally important, because by the time they get to the internet, while they're looking for a photographer in St. Pete and you might pop up on page 1 of Google, are they going to recognize you from seeing you somewhere else? So I just believe that a strong marketing campaign is going to include both the brand recognition and lead generation.
That's excellent. I love the way you put that. A common theme on this podcast is the word of mouth marketing. And every person so far has put that number one over and above, which is why I mentioned earlier about those that maybe aren't good with handshake marketing, that if they're not doing it, they're really missing the boat. And so I'm glad that you said that. It just reiterates it. That's a good thing. So tell us, to help your publication, why we should advertise with you. You have 3 Stroll magazines. We've talked about them. How will this help the advertisers grow their business?
I might put a slight twist on what I'm about to say, but I don't believe that every business in Tampa Bay is a good fit for what we do. So what I would advise them to do is, have a consultation. When we meet with business owners, we're not here to just sell them our product. We kind of get a wide scope on how their business operates, who their ideal client is. And if I'm not the right fit, then we can help direct them to marketing strategies that may be, what they actually need at that point in time. But a business that is a great fit for us looks at these neighborhoods in Snell Isle, Venetian, Davis Islands, Hyde Park, Bel Air, all the other neighborhoods in Tampa Bay that we work with and beyond, and they see their best potential customer living in that community. They know that that person is well connected. The word of mouth travels very frequently in these communities, and they know that if they can take some time to build a relationship there, then that network of influence could build more word of mouth long term in all of Tampa Bay.
Excellent. I love that answer. So that's perfect. And so as a business owner, later at the end of this podcast, we'll have you let people know how to find you in case they want to advertise with you. But I'm glad that you said that not everybody's a fit. If they're looking for a consultation with you, you've already said it, but say it again. It's a no pressure consultation, as I understand. So you're not going to push somebody to sign. You're going to sit down and network together and see if it's a good fit.
Yeah, it's more of an exploratory call. And it's oftentimes that I meet with business owners and they tell me, I didn't expect this to be kind of an interview. And I said, well, we want to make sure it's the right fit. And I don't know how to help you until I know what your goals are.
That's perfect. Moorman Photo does that a lot. It was especially when I shot weddings. Yeah, we did over 500 weddings. And the brides would call, and I do this with other clients now, and they would think that they're interviewing us, but the truth is I'm also interviewing them because I am not going to sign on the dotted line if this isn't going to work out, especially at the emotions that are tied up into a wedding. If I didn't think I was the right style, the right fit, personality for that client, I would happily refer them to one of the photographers that I network with in the Tampa Area Professional Photo Association, TAPA.org for those looking, and I would fit them with somebody I knew would take care of them. So it wasn't about just getting every dollar I could. It was about knowing if I could satisfy that client or if they would be better cared for. And it sounds like that's what you do.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. So I'm going to ask this question. It opens the door quite a bit to all kinds of different things. This question can be towards your marketing needs, business, your editing, your publishing, and maybe you don't have one. But tell me, because I like to learn, what new technology might you be implementing, I can't speak today, to help keep all your daily tasks in order?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone needs a good CRM. That's something that we've taken the time to reprocess recently. We had one and then switched to another one that would be better for us. And then the other thing that I think we've implemented recently is more of a drip campaign software. So we don't do a very good job at keeping up with customers who seem like they would be a good fit, but just aren't a good fit right now. And so that's something that we've started to integrate recently to where we can keep in touch with folks who might be a better fit at another time.
For you older listeners who maybe don't use a CRM or haven't heard of it yet, Lindsey, define for them what that actually does for them.
Yeah, it just basically helps you manage your touch points with your clients and prospects. So being able to automate and simplify how you interact with your prospects in the area and then convert them into clients. And then, of course, how you manage them from there, whether or not you have a monthly or for us, we have an annual plan of things that we do to check in with our clients. And so that CRM helps us to keep track of that and automate it.
So it's basically another form after you've done face-to-face networking with those clients or they've signed up with you to do business. You are now staying in front of them with the use of the CRM. I think it's safe to ask anyways, is there a particular brand of CRM that you're using?
Well, actually, it was finally developed by our company, so they've built one internally.
Okay,
Thank
very
God.
good. All right, that's good to know. I like to ask those questions because a young entrepreneur who's on their own and not with a larger picture corporation may want to look to sign up for something, so that's a good thing. Well, we're glad that we're into publishing. Can't complain a bit about it. If I recall right, I need to look at my schedule. I think I have a Tierra Verde portrait this evening. However, the weather looks kind of rough, so we'll see how that goes. We may have to reschedule. All right, so I want to ask you this, and you've already mentioned it, but there's always a philanthropic to successful business owners. There's a section in their heart somewhere where once their businesses are up and running, something becomes a normal part of their day-to-day. You've mentioned it earlier, but we'll talk again. Let me read it off here. I have always believed in picking 2 to 3 charities for my business to give back to, and we do. So is there any philanthropic activity that your publications participate in? If so, tell us how and how you support them.
Constantly, actually. So most of the events that we host in the neighborhood are typically tied to or in support of a local nonprofit. So the charity golf tournament that I mentioned supported Children's Dream Fund, and the event that we did at Tampa Bay Watch, of course, we utilized their venue, but it was great exposure for them, and they do so much to clean up Tampa Bay. In addition to that, we donate complimentary ad space for a month or so to different local nonprofits. So normally a resident from the neighborhood or one of our advertisers, we ask them, who are your favorite nonprofits in town? And so we'll reach out to those nonprofits on their behalf and donate an ad to help them either bring awareness to their day-to-day services or help them highlight one of their big charity events, something to give back to the community almost on a monthly basis.
Excellent. I love that you do that, because we do. And I just, back in the day, successful companies always did it and they really didn't talk about it. But now a lot of new businesses, there's a drop down on their website showing people what they do. I don't do it for the notoriety. I do it because it's actually easy. What you mentioned is you're already publishing the magazine. So you put a section in there about one of their events and so on, and you hardly miss the space in the magazine. A good thing got done, and the magazine still went out. Moorman Photographics will go and photograph a gala maybe for Ronald McDonald House or St. Pete Free Clinic and all of those. And I go out, other than not being able to book something else that night, I photograph the event. I see most of my clients there, and many of them are your clients. And when I'm done, I hand the images over to our editor, Tina, and she goes through all of that, gets it out the back door on time, and it's like we don't even miss it. There was no money lost, and so it was so easy to give back because we have processes in place to do that. So that sounds to me like what you're doing.
Yeah, and I honestly forgot to mention, which I should talk about more, and you're right, it doesn't get talked about enough, but 2% also of every advertiser's dollar in our publication is donated to national and worldwide organizations that help fight human trafficking. So I understated that because, again, we do this all over the country, so there's 600 franchisees, and that has equated to more than $25 million over the past 10 years.
That's phenomenal, and I'm ashamed to say, even though I'm an advertiser with you, I didn't know that.
And shame on me for not making sure that you
there
all
you
did.
Go. Well, then there's more philanthropic that Moorman Photographics is doing.
That's
so
right.
That's awesome. All right, let's see. How do you balance showcasing local talent and businesses while maintaining a high standard of quality in the magazine?
I think it comes down to the initial interview and making sure that we're onboarding businesses for the right reasons and setting the right expectations and making sure that when we look at businesses that we're not, again, just hungry for everyone and anyone, we want to make sure that we're bringing in the right businesses who are going to take care of our residents, not just, look at the communities as a lot of opportunity.
Cool. I love that. Well, let's jump here. We're getting close to the end of our podcast. There are a lot of phenomenal little business nuggets and thoughts on how to operate business that all came from you, by the way. I need that bell again to ring it because it's pretty exciting. Let's talk about the town that we know and love. I, too, am a St. Petersburg native. First generation for me, born and raised right here, and I have never lived anywhere outside of Pinellas County. I did a little bit of time in Odessa, Florida, but the dumb part was I was in high school then. I drove to St. Pete to this little private school every day. And then on the weekends, guess what I did as a young gentleman in high school? I would go visit my girlfriend who lived in St. Pete. So I was in St. Pete 7 days a week because we also went to church on Sunday in St. Pete. But we had my mom had a horse barn that we lived on. It was, I don't know how many acres, 8 acres or whatever it was. And we rented out stalls to horses and ended up moving there for a while. But I love St. Pete so much that Odessa was fine, but I really missed the burg. I just did. So tell me, what's your favorite part of St. Petersburg now?
Like you've probably seen this area change so much. And St. Pete didn't have a whole lot to offer, back 25, 30 years ago.
Agreed.
And now it is the place to be. I think the people are what make St. Pete unique because we're kind of a melting pot of all different types and we're all welcome of everyone here.
Agreed.
And there's always something new happening in our city. So there's always something to look forward to in St. Pete, aside from the only thing that we're running out of is parking.
Yes, I agree with you. And it seems like wherever there is parking, they're building something.
That's right.
That's the only concern I have. But otherwise, there's a big love in St. Pete When I was a kid, downtown St. Pete was somewhat dangerous, and you didn't go there. And now it's action-packed, and there's people everywhere, and there's activities 7 days a week. I'm amazed that I'll drive down to downtown on a Tuesday evening. I might be down there doing business, and how many people are out eating at the cafes and enjoying what St. Pete has to offer. I understand, and I think it's in the state, the second most sought-after city to live in the United States, and people are flying everywhere and moving here faster than we can imagine, which is good and bad. We're running out of space, but we still welcome them because that's how St. Pete is. Well, we're going to present some questions. This is the fun portion of this, so let's jump into it, and you can be quick or in-depth, whatever you want. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, that is such a good question. I guess my favorite word would be balance, because it really doesn't exist.
Fascinating. That first question, I'm most fascinated with the answers of. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, that is a good question also. I would probably say a failure, because that also doesn't exist.
I love that. All right. And you're living proof of that, by the way.
Thank you.
Just so you know. All right. So in life, what turns you on?
I think just meeting new people. And that's what I get up and do every day, is looking forward to meet new people. And I've learned so much from different business owners and our residents in the community. So
you have networking in your blood. I knew that immediately the second I met you. I was like, okay, this person has it down. So in life, what turns you off?
Oh, gosh. I think what turns me off is challenges, of course, but they're a necessity in order to grow.
And you seem to take them on well.
Oh, you're so kind.
You have 3 publications.
You're so kind, Rob.
I run 2 companies, and I often ask myself, what am I doing? But you're basically running 3.
Yeah, I think I've quit a million times, but we're still here.
It's okay, really brief. I find that people get so close to success and they drop off. When usually at the end of a battle or a struggle, the end of it is the hardest. And so they're tired, but yet you have to push even harder towards the end, and boom, all of a sudden there's success. You didn't do that. You've pushed through all of that and stayed on board, and I like to say rode the boat upstream against the current, and you've become successful because of that. So that's a good thing. All right, another question. What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of coffee being brewed in the morning.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I love that. All right. What sound or noise do you dislike?
You know, it's funny. My pastor on the church podcast I was listening to this morning made a joke about how we all used to have phones in order to, of course, receive incoming calls. And now when we hear our phones going off, it's almost like an interruption. So I guess I would compliment that and say, anytime my phone rings, it's almost like, what's going on at this point?
Okay. Yeah. And I always ask that too. Okay, what's burning? What's on fire? As business owners, our job is to put out fires and prevent them.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what successful business operation is. And that doesn't end.
Right.
The one thing about success is just because your business is done well and you're pushing through doesn't mean that the pain of business goes away. Matter of fact, you've just learned to contend with it quicker, faster, and better because you've had to walk through all of that. Again, you've rode that boat through all of that, and now you've been able to beach the boat, and there's a little bit of beach, but sometimes the tide rises, right? So you have to contend with all of that as well. All right, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
You know, I've often thought about potentially opening an event planning company because I've already started to do, and I have experience with hosting events, but I also have so many different connections with people that we could lean on or refer out to if we were to start something like that. So that would probably be the next route, if and when I have time to figure that out.
I was going to say, when do you have time? But I would also say you would be very good at that.
Thank you.
The stresses of event planning as a photographer, I've photographed probably over 2,000 events, corporate events, weddings, graduations, mitzvahs, all of that in my career and counting. We're still booked for numerous just for the rest of this year even. But I see what the planners go through, and every, what do they say? Crossing your T's and dotting your I's is very important because the bride or whoever's hosting that event shouldn't have to think about the problems. You're behind the scenes putting out the fires so that there's no issues. It's
Right.
a lot of stress, but your people skills and business skills and your fireman skills, firewoman skills, your ability to put out fires, I think you would kill it. So what profession would you not like to do?
Ironically, I'm not a great writer. So I know that we've joked in the past about me being a publisher and really what that means, but I could not be an editor. I don't have the patience or really even the background to handle any of that.
Talk about patience. You're sitting here on a podcast with a diagnosed ADHD person, so forget the focus span. I don't have one. We like ChatGPT quite a bit.
That's right.
I must say I do write it myself, and then I put it in there and have it clean it up.
Of
And I
course.
tell it not to change it, just fix all my mistakes.
And who doesn't at this point?
Yeah, you have to get by in the world. So before we close, we have a few things to do. I want to give credit. These questions were formed, I hope I pronounce his name right, Bernard Pivot, and they were carried on and given life by a gentleman named James Lipton. And I used to watch his show called Inside the Actor's Studio. James has passed, but go to YouTube, look it up, and he closes with these questions with all famous people that were either in his class or have just become successful in the realm of Hollywood, if you will, or music. And he would close with these questions, and I love them, so I wanted to give due to where they came from. So, Lindsey, in closing, tell the world how they can find you.
You can find us on social media, Stroll Snell Isle, Stroll Tierra Verde, Stroll Venetian Isles, or you can contact my good friend Rob. He's got my cell phone number.
Perfect. We could do that. I love that. And is there an email they can reach you at?
Lindsey.German, Lindsey.Germann @n2co.com.
Perfect. Well, to the business owners that are out there, if you feel you're a good fit, if you're not in one of these 3 publications that Lindsey owns, you are missing the boat, because I'm in them and it works. And I think that it's a good opportunity for you to grow your business and network. So guys, thanks for hanging out with us on the Camera Dude podcast. Remember always, reach out to those that have paved the way ahead of you for success. They are a great resource. Until the next one, stay safe, be peaceful, and always look up for directions in life. Catch you on the next Camera Dude podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Camera Dude Podcast. Don't forget to visit us at cameradudepodcast.com for more episodes and exclusive content. Connect with Rob Moorman on moormanphoto.com to explore his professional photography. And when you're ready to hit the road, make memories at sunburstrvresort.com. Until next time, keep capturing moments and chasing dreams. See you on the next episode of the Camera Dude Podcast.